Welcome back, Mets fans, to another week of Raise the Apple. And the New York Mets, our New York Mets looked like they were back and then kind of fell apart again in the Baltimore series. They kick off things in Kansas City this weekend for three more games before the All-Star break. And there is a lot to catch up on with the Mets and then doing a little home run derby All-Star game preview. Starting with, after taking 2 out of 3 against the Brewers, round 2 of the Subway Series, this time in Queens, the Mets and Yankees split the season series. The Yankees won 2 out of 3 in the Bronx. The Mets win 2 out of 3 at Citi Field. And the way that series went, especially with Jeff McNeil's home run, it looked like the Mets were back, and then they very easily could have swept that series. The only thing that stopped them was the double play from Cody Bellinger, and then the other one with, I don't know what the heck happened with Mauricio there, but a pair of very good double plays turned by the Yankees saved them from getting swept. And then the Mets head to Baltimore, where they win the first game, a late comeback, and then they lose both games yesterday of the doubleheader. So that wasn't a lot of fun yesterday. Yesterday was very difficult to watch, especially with you have Winker's injury in game 1 of the doubleheader, and you wasted a great start from David Peterson, who was just named an All-Star. And we'll talk about game 1 of the series first. So game 1 of the series, the Orioles series, the Mets have the late comeback led by their Fab Four, as Steve Cohen has called them, with Lindor, Nimmo, Pete, and Soto. In my opinion, I think that this is one of, if not the best 1 through 4s in baseball when they're healthy and when they're all going. I think that the only team that really comes in comparison to them, off the top of my head, is probably the Dodgers with Ohtani, Mookie, Freeman, and Will Smith. But I definitely think the 4 of them are, with how much they mean to this team, and that's kind of the bad part, is how good the 4 of them are, because the bottom has been so inconsistent and not good pretty much the entire year, where you're relying on 90% of your offense to come from just those 4 guys. And hopefully we'll come trade deadline time, maybe the Mets can add another bat in there, but I think they're going to prioritize starting pitching. As we've said a million times before, it looked good because we were getting Winker back, but then Winker goes down immediately to back issue, and if Winker goes down, paired with Starling Marte just going on the injured list, that means Jared Young's coming back, which I know is an infamous name in Mets land, but the pitching is going to have to be addressed. I know I've said it a million times. I know everyone talks about it every single day, but we're good for 3 days with Peterson, Holmes, and Montas. I know Montas has only had 3 starts back, but I mean, he was better his last time out against the Yankees. So we got 2.5, I guess we'll call it 2.5. 2.5 days secured. And then you have 2 bullpen games. Obviously, Senga comes back tonight against the Royals, and then Manaea will be back on Sunday to close out the first half against the Royals. So getting the 2 of them back is huge, and I think that was the initial plan for this Mets rotation, was to be Senga, Manaea, Peterson, Holmes, Montas, and they're finally going to have all 5 of them healthy and ready to go. But I do think another middle of the rotation, back end of the rotation guy is going to be needed in this, considering you don't know. Clay Holmes was good until he wasn't against the Orioles, so you don't know how long he's going to go, not from a health standpoint, but just from a continuing that, converting from a reliever to a starter. David Peterson, I'm not really worried about at all, but and Senga, I'm not worried about either. It's just getting him healthy. But Manaea, I think he's going to be fine. I got to see him pitch in a rehab outing in Syracuse, and he looked good. His last rehab start, the only damage he gave up was a 3-run homer. Other than that, he was pretty dominant. So it's just a matter of, are you getting the same Sean Manaea you got last year? Then Frankie Montas is kind of a wild card, where I feel like he's either going to put together a solid outing or he's just going to get absolutely shelled, and there is no in the middle. I do like a Zach Gallen, but I'm afraid of if Arizona decides to sell, I'm afraid of what that's what that's going to cost. So we'll have to see as we get closer to the trade deadline. I understand why the Mets aren't making moves now is because the price for certain guys is probably through the roof right now, as opposed to if they wait another week or so. The deadline's July 31st. So the price for, we'll use Sandy as an example on the Marlins. The price for Sandy now is probably going to be a lot higher than it's going to be towards the deadline. And I think Sandy is the guy that everyone is, the hot commodity that everyone's expecting to move. And I wouldn't be surprised if the Diamondbacks sell if Zach Gallen's in that conversation as well. But that's something we're going to have to, we'll figure out as we get closer to the deadline. But getting Senga Minaya back is great, but they're going to need more. And I think the bullpen is going to be the priority, but that rotation, getting Senga Minaya back, is going to be absolutely huge for this team. So hopefully they can get some sort of momentum going into the All-Star break against the Royals. I know after winning back-to-back series against the Brewers and the Yankees was great. You would have loved to have gotten another series win against Baltimore, especially with how disappointing they've been this year. But sometimes that's just the way it is. I mean, with the doubleheader, Game 2 of the doubleheader, it felt like a throwaway game. Like, they felt like they were just kind of like, whatever happens, happens, given it was a bullpen game. And Game 1 obviously wasted a great start from Peterson. I don't blame Mendoza for pulling Peterson. I don't blame Mendoza for letting him go back out there. I don't blame Stanek for giving up the lead. When this offense, or when this team was built around its offense, and you go 1 for 11 with runners in scoring positions against a 41-year-old Charlie Morton, that's a big problem. But to give Charlie Morton some credit, he's throwing 99 at the end of a 100-pitch outing at 41 years old, which is still very, very impressive. So it would have been nice if the Mets could have kept it going and won 2 out of 3 against the Orioles. They very easily could have won Game 1 of that doubleheader, and then the last game was what it was. I think the Mets should stop playing doubleheaders because things seem to go very bad every single time the Mets play a doubleheader. But that's just me. So finishing with the Royals, and then coming out of the All-Star break, they will open against the Reds with David Wright Day on Saturday, so the second game back from the break, which I'm going to. Super excited for that. I think that's going to be a lot of fun. And I think that's going to be I think that if there is a team that needed the All-Star break, it's the New York Mets. Because I think they'll give guys a chance to rest, give the pitchers a chance to regroup. They can finally realign their rotation the way they want it. The bullpen can get a much-needed break, and then the Mets can kind of just sit back and chill for a minute as they get closer to the deadline and evaluate what they're going to need and what they're going to have to address in the coming weeks. So, bulk of this episode, though, I want to talk about the Home Run Derby and the All-Star Game and a couple little notes around the league. Let's start with the Home Run Derby. The field is set. So, this year's Home Run Derby, O'Neal Cruz, Cal Raleigh, Ronald Acuna Jr., Jazz Chisholm, Byron Buxton, Junior Caminero, Brent Rooker, and James Wood. Overall, I liked this field because, until the end. I liked this field until Jazz Chisholm. I know it doesn't, the Home Run Derby doesn't have the same lore as it usually does, especially now when you don't have Alonso, who said he wasn't going to be in it. You don't have Aaron Judge. You don't have Shohei Ohtani. You don't have Vladdy. You don't have Schwarber. Guys that were made for the Home Run Derby that aren't participating kind of stinks. But I like that the league is trying to get these young superstars involved, like an O'Neal Cruz, like a Junior Caminero, like a James Wood. And then some of the more underrated guys, like, well, Byron Buxton, I wouldn't say he's underrated, but given his injuries, he's finally healthy, giving him the opportunity. And then a guy like Brent Rooker. And then Cal Raleigh, obviously, just in the MVP race. And Ronald Acuna Jr. in front of the home crowd. Jazz Chisholm, though, I mean, when I think of the Home Run Derby, I don't think of Jazz Chisholm. And now I'm going to eat my words because I'm sure he's probably going to do very well, but I liked this field until Jazz Chisholm. For little children in the stands, I would pay very close attention to O'Neal Cruz because he might in fact kill somebody with how hard he hits the ball. But I liked this field until Jazz Chisholm. That was kind of a little bit of a letdown for me. I'm surprised a guy like Schwarber didn't want to do it, or a Vladdy. I know Judge, Otani, and Alonso had said a while ago they weren't going to do it. I know Ellie De La Cruz was invited but turned it down. So there's some guys that understandably don't want to do it, but it would have been, I think we could have done a little, I feel like that was a little bit of the league scrapping a little bit. I think Jazz Chisholm, in my opinion, is one of the most overrated players in the league. I mean, he's a good player, don't get me wrong, but I don't think he's a superstar, and it seems like he's getting painted like a superstar year in and year out, and I frankly just I'm not really a fan, but that I could go on a whole separate thing for that. So who do I think's gonna win? I'm gonna go with the big dumper and Cal Raleigh. I think 2025 is going to be the year of Cal Raleigh. He's in the MVP race. The Mariners are in the playoff race. He's having one of the best seasons offensively for a catcher in the history of the sport. I think it's just going to be capped off with a home run derby win. I wouldn't be surprised if Ronald Acuna Jr. in front of the home crowd can get a win, or if James Wood. I think James Wood is a sleeper pick in this because I think he's a budding superstar, and I really hope the Nationals don't waste it. I know the Nationals are their own mess right now with firing Mike Rizzo and Dave Martinez, but I like Cal Raleigh. I wouldn't be surprised if Ronald Acuna gets in there, but I think my sleeper is going to be James Wood. My sleeper last year was Teoscar Hernandez, who ended up winning it, but I think James Wood is a big sleeper in this year's Derby. I think he has a chance to put on a great show. And it's a great way to kick off the All-Star game. I like this new format with the time as opposed to the outs. The outs were just... as much as I love baseball, I'll admit it too, when it takes too long. It took way too long. So I like this timing system better. I think the league has finally started to get it worked out and adjusted properly. So I think this is a great opportunity for the league, because of the four major sports, the Major League Baseball All-Star Game and All-Star Week is the most viewed of the four and the most enjoyable to watch, in my opinion. The Pro Bowl stinks. NBA All-Star Game, I don't even care to watch. And the NHL All-Star Game, I don't even pay attention to either. So I think baseball needs to capitalize on that. And I think this field, outside of Chisholm, I think this is a pretty good field to help do that. Which leads us into the All-Star Game itself. Mets are having 4 All-Stars. Lindor, we know, is starting, along with Pete and Edwin Diaz, and then Peterson was named as a replacement. We have this conversation every year. The conversation of the fan vote and snubs and all that stuff. Let me say this, because I know it's an unpopular opinion. I like the 1 representative minimum. I think that is good. Now, I might be the only person who thinks that, but why do I think that is? Because, to me, the All-Star Game is to celebrate the game of baseball. It's supposed to be a fun way to celebrate the sport. To me, you can't celebrate the sport unless every single team is represented. And it also, there's even the Rockies or the Marlins or the Pirates, these teams that are so bad, even they have someone that's worthy of being an all-star. For the Pirates, it's Paul Skeens. For the Rockies, it's Hunter Goodman, who may very well maybe moved at the deadline, but if you look at his numbers as a catcher, Hunter Goodman is having an all-star caliber year. And Kyle Stowers with the Marlins is also having a very good year. So it's not like they just picked some random guy that was batting 200 with a home run and a 500 OPS just to fill the team's requirement. They picked guys that genuinely are, in my opinion, were deserving of being an all-star. And I like that we have this rule. I hope it stays. I understand why people want to get rid of this rule, but to me, I think it's the whole point of the All-Star Game is to celebrate the game, and you can't celebrate the game when you are missing representatives from teams, especially when half these guys sit out because they don't want to play or they're hurt, or if they're a pitcher, they're scheduled to pitch on Saturday, so it works out timing wise to have them not pitch during the game. So then all the reserves come in and all these guys are added as roster replacements. But I like the one team minimum, which leads into the next conversation, which is All-Star Game snubs. Most notably Juan Soto, other guys that were snubbed, Seiya Suzuki. Some of these guys may be added as roster replacements, but should have already been on the team. I mean, at the time, I'd have to fact check if he still does, but Seiya Suzuki led the league in RBI, and he has been one of the best players on, and one of the big reasons why the Cubs are playing as great as they are this year, and he's not an all-star. Juan Soto, I know bulk of it came in June, but I mean, Juan Soto's put up an all-star caliber season, but when you look at a guy like Fernando Tatis, by his standards, is having a down year, and you look in the American League side at a guy like Julio Rodriguez, has a mid-600s OPS, I mean, and it's not like those guys are the one rep for their team, as the Padres have Jason Adam out of the bullpen, and the Mariners have, I believe, Brian Wu and, of course, Cal Raleigh. So, I mean, obviously they want the star players there. That's why Julio and Tatis are there. But some of the snubs are just mind-boggling to me. I mean, I like the fan vote. I like that the league gets involved as well when it comes to pitchers and reserves. But we have to have some sort of criteria that they have to make to be considered an all-star. Like, they can't just be like Clayton Kershaw. I said it on a couple episodes ago, I believe, when we talked about his 3,000 strikeout. Clayton Kershaw is not the same Clayton Kershaw, and it's okay. But he was the commissioner's legacy pick over David Peterson, who I think should have already been an all-star as opposed to just a roster replacement. But, I mean, you have to have, if Clayton Kershaw's in the all-star game, the league has to know, or the Dodgers have to know, that he's done. Because that's just some of the reasons these guys are being named all-stars as opposed to others is just crazy to me. We could go on a whole tangent over all-star game snubs, but I mean, I think this is going to be a good all-star game. I know a lot of people don't really care for it anymore. I personally love it. It's one of my favorite events of the baseball season. And I like having one rep from each team. I think that's how you celebrate the game of baseball. But the one problem I do have with this year's All-Star game is the ABS system will be used. I hate it and I love it at the same time. I love it because this is where you test it out. This is where you do a soft launch almost of it, because as much as I hate the ABS system itself, the idea of it, doing it this way, I think, is the correct way. I'm not a fan of the ABS game. I've gone to ABS system. I've gone to a handful of minor league games since it's been put forth, and I'm not a fan of it. I think it takes away the human. It's continuing this trend of taking the human element out of the game, which I don't like. Too much technology involved, and I just don't think. I mean, I said the same thing about the pitch clock. I've grown to like the pitch clock a little bit, so maybe I'll be proven wrong again with the ABS. But I don't like it. I don't like the direction we're going with all this technology stuff adding into the game. This also could be a whole separate tangent. Maybe this will be an off-season conversation, but I guess the All-Star Game is the time to roll it out, since now they took away home field advantage in the World Series, so they're really not playing for anything. But I'm not a fan of it. Not a fan of it at all. And the other thing I'm not a fan of is the last thing we're going to talk about, and it was Rob Manfred's proposal, or throwing out the idea of a salary cap in the league. No. That would be absolutely horrible for baseball if there was a salary cap. Now, I know that's easy for me to say as a Mets fan, considering the Mets have the highest payroll in the league. But what I don't understand, why I'm against it is, why are we punishing teams like the Mets, the Yankees, the Dodgers? Why are we punishing them for their owners actually trying to win games, actually trying to win championships? But we are going to continue to encourage guys like Bob Nutting, who owns the Pirates, to do nothing but put out a crappy product year after year. I know the Pirates had their run where they were in the postseason a couple times, but they weren't making it far. They were making the postseason in a mediocre division. I just don't understand why we would put a salary cap. We had the lockout, what was it? I can't even remember. Was it 2021? I can't remember the lockout for the life of me. But I think this is going to cause another lockout. If this is part of this next CBA, I think this is going to be a huge problem with players. And if anything, the league needs a salary floor where owners have to spend a certain amount. I don't know what that number would be. I'm just going to throw it out there. 100 million. I'm just going to throw a number out there. I'm not a numbers guru when it comes to financials like that, so I'm just going to say 100 million every team has to spend. Now, that is a lot of money. That's just a number. Now, that's a lot of money to anyone, no matter if you're a billionaire or you're an average Joe. That's a lot of money. But we have to incentivize teams to try and win. Why would you own a sports team if you weren't trying to win? It's just crazy to me. I don't think we should be punishing the teams that are actually trying to win and are actually trying to put forth a competitive roster every single day and trying to win World Series titles. I don't think we should be punishing those teams and enabling other owners to not spend a dime, and they can just sit, finishing 70 and 90 every year and be totally okay with that. Now, I know obviously 100 million probably wouldn't be the number, but because I know it's different in some areas with big market, small market teams, but it's punishing the fans when you have spoiled Mets, Yankees, Dodgers fans who their owners are buying or spending money on all this talent, all these superstars to try and win games, and then as opposed to a Colorado or a Milwaukee who has superstars, but they don't spend the money. And then you look at the last 4 years, we've had some of the worst teams ever, with the 2023 Oakland A's, the 2024 Chicago White Sox, now the 2025 Colorado Rockies. We've had 3 straight years of the worst teams to ever step foot on a baseball field, and we are going to punish the teams that actually try and compete, that actually want to put forth a winning product, as opposed to the teams who do absolutely nothing. I am very much against that. But I think a lot of baseball fans are in agreement on that, which I think is a good thing, but I do not see that ending well for the league. I do see if there's any validity to that and Manfred tries going through with it, I do believe that will cause some sort of lockout or just bad look for Major League Baseball. But that's going to wrap it up for this week of Raise the Apple. Covered a lot with our Mets and then the Home Run Derby and All-Star Game kind of preview, and then talking about the salary cap with the league if that were to come to fruition. But make sure you subscribe on Apple Podcasts and on YouTube. Make sure you like and follow on TikTok at RTA_pod. Appreciate all the support. We will see you guys next week with a little second half preview for the Mets, with Senga back tonight, Minaya back on Sunday. Hopefully the Mets can head into the All-Star break on a positive note. Thank you for tuning in. Make sure you subscribe, and let's go Mets.